Right now, the left controls academia. They control all three branches of Congress. They control the FBI, the CIA, processed foods, pharmaceuticals, all the media. It's controlled by really 5 or 6 different entities that are progressive. These 5 entities control 96% of the seeds, control 98% of the processed foods. They pay the FDA off. They poison the food supply with processed foods. They make you sick, and then you go over there and you're hooked on a prescription, a pharmaceutical for the rest of your life. I think the way to get around that is you got to get rid of centralized farming and get back to the family farm. When we really decentralize and the people see the benefits to themselves and their families and their community, i.e. better health, I think there's a good chance of pulling that off.
You're suggesting that one of the reasons that a company gets big, and they almost always very typically come out as being progressive rather than being conservative, is because even if let's say the leadership of that company is conservative, they don't want to push back against some of the institutions, well, most of the institutions which are controlled by the progressive ideologies. Is that the case?
I think they're more concerned with negative PR than they are with doing the right thing. You know, I think they're kind of, from a personal integrity, solid sense of self, they're built like paper dolls. You think leaders of our community, leaders of our companies, leaders of our country would be put together better than they are, but they're really paper dolls. You know, they get a little pressure from the media, they get a little pressure from the vocal minority, and they fold tent. I mean, no courage at all, and that's a problem. You know, leadership's all about courage. You know, rank doesn't give you courage. Rank doesn't make you a great leader. You know, courage and integrity and dignity and doing the right thing. I mean, that's what gives you leadership. I mean, if you look at Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Christ, Buddhist, Churchill, all the great folks stood up for what was right. We were raised, our parents and grandparents, by the greatest generation ever, the greatest. We knew right from wrong. We knew the sacrifices they made. We knew the dignity they had. We knew good from bad, deceit from truth. We were taught that. And the beautiful thing about what's going on with all this nonsense from the progressives, and especially the elite left, which is an evil group of people, is they've woken up the sleepy giant. Now, what do I mean by that? This all starts back in 1918 with the Frankfurt Institute, you know, which the philosophy was disrupt, 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 destroy, 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 with no solution. They knew if they could divide it, they could make America weak. And they attacked the middle class in the 40s. Then they did the sexual revolution in the 60s and 70s with Freud. Then they attacked the culture in the 90s and 2010. And now they're attacking our kids. And you're dealing with Gates, Soros, Schwab, the Clinton Foundation. They have no regard for humanity. It's an evil group of people. They think they're God. They want to be God. And the closest thing to God is an embryo, is a child. So they know if they destroy our youth, they destroy America. See, they can't make us a global economy unless they make us weak and disorganized and discombobulated. They can't do that. So they're now attacking our youth. The red flag, the telltale sign of when these 5 evil folks, Soros, Gates, Schwab, some of the bigger institutional investors, is when you see an assault on our kids. CRT. Locking parents up because they disagree with what's being taught, sex trafficking, trafficking of minors, pedophilia, methamphetamine coming across the border, the drugs. They're attacking our youth, and our youth is our future. And so anytime you see an attack on our youth, abortion up to 9 months, giving a vaccine to a 5-month-old with no test, or a 5-year-old with no test, when you see an attack on our youth, you know it's the evil elite left working their evilness, their hatred.
I wanted to actually shift gears a little bit here and discuss a project I'm working on in regards to the potential coming food crisis. So you have sort of a different view than a lot of other people, because not only did you build a giant company, that company is actually in the food business. So let me ask you this. Looking ahead, how do you see the inflation that's rampaging around the world, but specifically here in America, how do you see that affecting the food prices, let's see, for the foreseeable year, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, remember, inflation is simply the printing of money. when you print money you don't have, you devalue the dollar, and it's a cruel future tax on the middle class. So inflation is just a byproduct of creating artificial M1, M2. I don't think there's going to be any letdown anytime soon. We just raced past 30 trillion in debt. You got to print that money somewhere to make up for that. So I think food prices are going to keep going up. The problem is, back to the 5 entities, whether it's Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, Gates, or Buffett. These 5 entities control 96% of the seeds, control 98% of the processed foods. The food supply will make you sick. Processed foods will make you sick. Won't kill you, but make you sick. Oh, by the way, those 5 entities own the pharmaceuticals. I'm just giving you one. We can go into media, we can go into politics, we can go into building supplies, we can go into automotive, we can go whatever you want, but let's just talk about. So these 5 entities they pay the FDA off, they poison the food supply with processed foods, they make you sick, and then you go over there and you're hooked on a prescription, a pharmaceutical for the rest of your life. The arrangement is, it's not a moral, ethical arrangement. And so I think the way to get around that is you got to get rid of centralized farming and get back to the family farm.
Is that possible to implement at scale without hurting, let's say, the broader economy? Because if people start, let's say, bringing it back to the homestead, naturally they would leave the workforce.
Well, I think you've got to educate the small farmer. If you can educate the small farmer on how to do it efficiently, effectively, organically, without all these pesticides and fertilizers, and they see the benefits in their health, their family's health, and the community's health, absolutely. Furthermore, as the centralized farming, like you say, fertilizer's up, land's up, fuel's up, everything's up. So as that goes up, it's going to make it more advantageous for a small farmer to come in and, maybe not do it as cheap or as efficient, but that's if you want to argue yield and calories. I would make the argument, let's talk about quality and nutrition. If you can measure nutrition, which we're working on right now as we speak at Papa's Farms, then you've got an advantage with a small farm that, you may have a little less yield, but you get a lot more bang for your buck. When you eat 6 Twinkies or Ho-Hos, whatever it is, chips, dip, whatever, the processed food, you're still hungry. And that's because the body's smart. You're getting the calories, but you're not getting the nutrition. When you eat something organic that's high in nutrition and dietary effectiveness, the body fills up. It'll shut down, then it's not hungry anymore. So I think when we educate, which we're doing right now, and we really decentralize, and the people see the benefits to themselves and their families and the community, i.e. better health, I think there's a good chance of pulling that off.